This is Freedom Roundup. My name is Kress. You guys, this is a very special podcast. It is an interview podcast that we have not done before. We are going to be talking with special guest Dakota Worrell. He is the executive director of the GOP office for the Jackson County Republican Party. I have a lot of questions for him. Buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to Freedom Roundup. My name is Kress, and I am joined with Dakota Worrell. This is going to be a different podcast, like I said. Sean and Michelle Horner, they are in the midst of moving. They cannot join us tonight. And Representative Jeff Coleman is working tirelessly. Did I say that right?
Yeah, tirelessly.
Thank you. Right now. So he is unable to make it as well. So this is a very special edition of Freedom Roundup. Probably the last one before election time.
Oh my gosh.
So Dakota, you have been beating the street.
Yes.
Knocking doors.
Pounding the pavement.
Demolishing doors. Yeah. How do you feel about the election coming up?
Well, like everything about this year, it's going to be hard. I think whatever happens, there's going to be people who are unhappy, and that's going to mean this isn't going to be a clean election night where we get to go to bed at 1 a.m. after staying up and watching the results come in, because there are 10 states that will not call it on election night, and several media outlets have said that they're not going to call it on election night. I actually have a map of the states that don't expect all of the vote to be counted on election night. And they're the usual suspects. So it's just gonna. Sure, it'll be fun if you are a politico and a political junkie, and you are a glutton for punishment and you enjoy this stuff. But I don't know if you're asking if I think Trump's going to win or not. That's a question I get asked a lot. But in general, I think whoever wins, there's going to be some nastiness, and we're going to have to deal with that. And it's not going to be. It's going to be dragged out for a week or so, and then I don't know what's going to come next.
So when you say there's going to be nastiness, and I want to do a follow-up question with that, as well as why are the election results not going to come in, and what states were you talking about when you said the usual suspects?
Well, there are states that don't expect all of the vote to be counted on election night. Washington, California, Nevada, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. Maryland. So a lot of these, a couple of them are swing states. A lot of them are like Washington, California, Maryland are heavy Democrat. New York, heavy Democrat states. Connecticut. And Pennsylvania is a swing state, and Nevada is at play. So Alaska's on there too. But basically, there's with all of the mail-in voting and a couple of cases that went to the Supreme Court for extensions for the deadline. It just means that
what deadline is that?
Deadline for having all the ballots counted, meaning. Past election day, they're going to still be counting ballots.
So why is that?
Well, it's because, like in Pennsylvania and in California, where they've got mail-in ballots, they're relying heavily on mail-in ballots because of COVID and all this other stuff. They're just not going to. They're just not going to have all the ballots counted by election night, because they expect to still be getting mail-in ballots, I guess, through the mail, and then they have to count them. And So they took it to court and got their extensions. They were challenged, but the Supreme Court ruled in their favor in Pennsylvania. So they're gonna find some more ballots after Election Day and count those. And I mean, it's the left. I mean, I personally have the opinion that Election Day is Election Day. I don't like this idea of extending Election Day out for a month. I mean, we've had a month already to vote.
I don't understand why they would extend Election Day out past the first Tuesday in November.
Well, you see, it's because of COVID, and we have so many people that just cannot go to the polls.
But there should be a cutoff. I mean, I'm putting this out there. There should be a cutoff date for your ballots to be mailed in on time. I know Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft said they will not be accepting any more ballots past Election Day.
Yep.
Is that a Is that a constitutional thing, or that's nowhere in the Constitution?
It's not.
It's per state, though.
Yeah, the states handle their election. I mean, the elections are handled on the state and local level, really, and so it is state by state. And some states have been doing mail-in for a long time, like California, and it shouldn't surprise anyone that they're a one-party state now. But with all the things that go on with mail-in voting, but the Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft here in Missouri it has stuck to the hard deadline, and I think that's wise. I believe in the early days of the country, there was it was more like voting month. They didn't have quite a hard deadline, and voting dragged on for weeks. And after a while of that happening in the early republic, they said no more of this. Mm-hmm. Hard deadline. Election day is this day, and it's changed. I think it's something like the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, and they picked that for a reason. And then there's historical reasons why they picked Election Day, but they definitely decided that Election Day should be a hard deadline.
Do you think that in the future we would see Election Day as a federal holiday, or how do you feel about Election Day being a federal holiday?
Okay, so the TradCon in me doesn't like.
Now, explain to people what that is real quick.
It's just an internet, traditional conservative. It's an internet meme.
Okay.
And I say that half jokingly, TradCon, but traditional conservative, whatever. But basically, the idea of extending voting past Election Day and bending over backwards and making it super easy for people to vote just smacks to me of Americans being lazy.
So you wouldn't be in favor, though, of a national day of voting, everybody off work for that one day, and they go vote?
I wouldn't make a federal case out of it. I mean, I wouldn't devote energy to opposing it, but I wouldn't really be for it either. Because again, it's like if they did that, fine, whatever. But I wouldn't push for it. I wouldn't advocate for it. I wouldn't use energy to push for it. I mean, I don't think that. Millions of people make time to go vote, and it's already laws. I think there are already laws on the books that say that employers can't stop you from voting. If you say I'm going out to vote, they can't. You're fired. They can't do that already. So it's like people just don't want to put in the effort and make time. They don't want to make it a priority. They don't want to take initiative. So they want everybody to bend over backwards and make it as easy as possible for them to do something that they should take initiative to do themselves. That's my hot take. It's clearly my opinion. It's not, like I said, I'm not completely totally devoted to it. It's just a minor annoyance.
Right.
It's an annoyance.
I'm all for that being a national holiday. It gives people they get out of the excuse of, oh, I had to work, which is untrue. Your job, it's law for them to let you out of work before the polls close, give you a 2-hour window before polls close. And usually polls even open or stay open a little bit past 7 o'clock anyway, to make sure people in line are able to vote.
Yeah.
But I think a talk of national making this a national holiday would really not give anybody an excuse to say, oh, I can't, or I couldn't, I didn't have time. Well, you had all day.
Right, and I see that. I mean, I understand the logic of that argument. I don't want to keep capitulating to people that make excuses and then whine about things. Like you can make it a priority and go vote, but you don't.
You're being savage, man.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Americans need to. The country is the way it is because people sat back, didn't take initiative, let their country go. The people that were devoted and did work at politics are the ones who are in charge now, and those people happen to be lunatics. So the only people that the American people have to blame for the way the country is themselves. And capitulating to their excuses just plays into this mindset Americans have about politics.
Yeah. So you've been knocking doors also for a lot of different candidates in Jackson County.
Yes.
Obviously, most of our already elected officials that are running for re-election, they're probably going to get in.
Yeah.
Do you have a bad feeling about any of them or a really good feeling about any of them?
A lot of I think our incumbents have a really excellent shot of staying in office, from state representatives to the governor and our statewide electeds, lieutenant governor, secretary of state. I'm confident that they'll all win re-election. And then there's a few upstarts for a couple of long shot races that we're hoping they could pull it off, but it's like I said, it's an uphill battle for them.
A couple of those long shots, I'm thinking we're both on the same page on this.
Yeah.
Probably congressional candidate Ryan Dirks,
Yep.
running in Missouri's 5th Congressional District.
Yep.
And Tracy Chappell.
Yeah.
She's running for Jackson County prosecutor.
Yeah.
How do you've been knocking doors with them too?
Yeah.
We both know them pretty well.
Here's the thing. Everybody that meets these people, Ryan and Tracy, everyone that meets them at the door has a very positive response, right?
Right.
They love Ryan, and they love the fact that he's come to their door. I mean, we've gone to places where it's not just these people have never seen a Republican in their lives. Emmanuel Cleaver, the Democrat incumbent congressman, has never been to their door either. I mean, he's taken their vote for granted, and Ryan
he expects the vote from them.
He expects it, and Ryan has put in the work of actually going to their door and talking to them and asking for their vote. Same thing with Tracy, right? Jean Peters Baker, the current prosecutor, is terrible for a lot of reasons, but I mean, one of those reasons is, of course, she also just kind of takes people's votes for granted, doesn't do the work. Tracy has gone and knocked doors and talked to people, and everybody that meets her really has a positive reaction to her. They really like her. She's intelligent. Mm-hmm. She's strong-willed. She's sharp, and they can tell that her intention behind running is she saw a problem and she just wants to fix it.
Right.
She wants to do the right thing.
She is one of those candidates that's getting in a race for the right reason.
Yes, and they see that. People see that.
Absolutely.
And so I've never met a person that met one of these candidates and had a negative reaction or didn't like them. I mean, even Democrats that they've talked to at the doors, would say, well, you know what? I kind of like where you're coming from. I kind of like what you're saying there. The problem is, though, they are spent, out fundraised, and have name recognition is the biggest issue for local candidates.
Right. I mean, one thing that I do love that Tracy Chappell is doing, she stands in front of that courthouse in Jackson County.
Yeah.
And she calls out her opponent. She gets groves of people to show up to that courthouse as she's talking, doing a Facebook Live. And she tells them what's going on in this prosecutor's office, what's wrong with Jackson County, Kansas City, why is there so many homicides?
Yep.
And it's basically because Jean Peters Baker is not prosecuting how she should be prosecuting.
No.
She would rather prosecute the police than some guy beating his wife or attempted murder,
a shooting,
Yeah.
or a burglary. Jean Peters Baker is a purely political creature.
Absolutely.
She was chair of the Democrat Party, and she just kind of went into this role and decided that she was going to check all of the woke boxes by
Yep.
not prosecuting real crimes
Yep.
and harassing the police.
I mean, to me, she's just another out of touch white liberal pandering
Yes. Yep.
to anybody that wants to listen. Virtue signaling.
Yep.
That's the word I want to use. Virtue signaling.
That's her entire career as a prosecutor has
Yeah.
just been about virtue signaling, which means attacking the police as much as you can, prosecuting them for things that were not really out of order. Cops doing their job, doing everything they're supposed to do by the book, still getting prosecuted because the outcome was still, well, they did have to draw their gun on a guy who was nuts and twacked out.
Right.
She targets the police for doing their job and then doesn't prosecute actual criminals for hurting people. And there are so many people that show up to these rallies you're talking about with Tracy Chappell, who are directly affected by Jean Peters Baker.
Right.
Because of the job that she's done. These people have lost loved ones, or their property has been damaged, or their lives have been threatened, and the prosecutor's office does nothing. And many cops who have said, I've brought case after case after case to the prosecutor's office, and nothing was done about it. Serious cases, shootings, rapes, murders.
Right.
People, like I said, people have lost loved ones, and nothing has been done about it. The prosecutor has no intention or will to do the right thing and bring justice for many families who have been wronged.
I don't know if you would be able to do this, but do you have an over-under for their races? Can you speculate on that, or do you think it's too tough right now still with I'm days outside? I mean, there's still a lot of ground these guys can make up and squeak out a win.
I can say speculate. I don't have data on it is the problem. We don't have polling. And that's part of the fundraising issue, right? We haven't been able to pay for polling, but I can say that there will be a down ballot effect if Trump will win the state of Missouri. So locally, if he does exceptionally well in Jackson County, that could be a positive down ballot effect for local candidates. So Ryan Dirks could win Eastern Jackson County. So could Tracy Chappell. I've talked to so many people at the doors who have said, I'm just voting straight Republican down ticket. And a lot of times
Is that in the suburbs, though, or is that down in the city where...
No, it's not in the city. It is in Eastern Jackson County outside of Kansas City proper.
Okay.
Now, in Kansas City, there's a weird dynamic going on. Ryan has been knocking doors in communities that aren't Waldo and Brookside. So where all the rich white liberals live. He's been knocking outside of those neighborhoods, and he's been going to the areas around Troost and Prospect, and talking to people who have to live every day with high crime and drugs and everything else in their communities, and they're tired of it and they're sick of it. And he's been talking to these people and hearing them and their how they live and hearing their experiences. And so he's been talking to those people and trying to figure out where they're coming from and what they need. And if he's reached enough of those people and those people go out and vote, Kansas City, the results on election night in Kansas City could look a lot different this year.
Because we all know that Jackson County is notoriously blue.
Yes.
Very, very Democrat county.
And largely because of Kansas City. And if
absolutely.
You look at the election results from previous elections in Eastern Jackson County and the suburbs, Blue Springs, Lee Summit, Independence, and everywhere else. There's a lot of Republican precincts, and even in the precincts that went for Hillary Clinton in 2016, for example. There are a few that were definitely skewed one way or the other for Trump or for Clinton, but a lot of these precincts were within 3 to 5% of each other. So,
well, that's pretty impressive.
Well, in I mean, and statistically, that's within the margin of error. A lot of these precincts, whether they went for Trump or for Clinton, being within 3 to 5% margin means that Eastern Jackson County is the competitive battleground of Jackson County. And Jacob Turk won or got close to winning several times. Out of the many times that he ran for Congress against Emmanuel Cleaver, he kind of pushed the needle in his direction. And now Kansas City, on the other hand, is like 80% Democrat every time, every election, every candidate, from president to Congress to. It's weird. It's just 80% consistently.
So I think over the past 2 years, well, let's say past 4 years actually, the city of Lee Summit, which I'm sure everybody knows where Lee Summit is, but people that might not know where Lee Summit is that happen to stumble across this podcast, it is in the county of Jackson County.
Yes.
It used to be a very Republican city. Over the past 4 years, we have been seeing it trend blue.
Yeah.
And it's almost purple now.
Yeah, and that's the suburbs are the battleground. So it's not just Lee Summit. Lee Summit is experiencing this effect more so than Blue Springs and Independence, but and Independence has been very blue historically. But there's a different. We can talk about what's going on there in a minute, but it's the suburbs.
Well, what do you think?
It's the suburbs. It's college educated people under 40 moving out into the suburbs, and they just tend to be more left wing, more liberal. So where you had a solid red Republican area, their grandchildren are moving into the suburbs, and there's a lot of growth, and they're moving out of downtown Kansas City, which is deteriorating, and they're moving into the suburbs where it's nicer.
So do you think that we're going to see a flip, a suburb city flip? Do you think that the suburbs are going to slowly turn blue and the cities might turn red, or do you think it's just going to be
I don't see that.
Blue reaching out to the suburbs turning purple?
It's just going to be the blue
slowly fading to.
It's going to be blue reaching out into the suburbs. I don't see the cities ever turning red. Something drastic would have to change. But what I do see is the blue creep into the suburbs, and it's like I said, everybody that goes to college now might as well be a communist.
Suburbs are trending blue because of the college educated.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. A lot of it has to do with age and education. So younger college educated people moving into the suburbs are just more left wing, and the more.
So where's the Republicans going, or are they just getting outnumbered by these liberal Democrats?
Yes.
Okay.
Our culture has trended left for a long time, and nothing is slowing that down, except maybe Trump for a minute. But the culture, cultural forces like the universities, the media, they're pushing our culture leftward, and
so we're going to hit a brick wall doing 150 mile an hour at some point.
Yes.
And Trump is just slowing it down for now.
Yes.
So we can either hit the brick wall at 150 mile an hour, or going 150 miles an hour, or we can hit the brick wall going at 60 miles an hour.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. So the issue is conservatives for a long time have not been very good about being strong advocates for their own principles.
But we're seeing it now. Is it too late for us? Is it too late for the party? Is it too late for the country?
I don't know. I think that this election is gonna say a lot about whether or not it's too late.
Right.
I mean, conservatives have lost the culture already. I mean, they've already lost it.
We didn't fight hard enough for it.
No. No, we didn't. And this goes. I mean, it began all the way back as far as Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
But this if you really want to know the truth of it, I mean, the reason that we're seeing this change, and unless we recognize it and do something about it, Republicans are not going to win another national election ever again. But something has to be done. But part of the issue is, conservatives and Republicans they've had this pragmatic mindset where we're going to be the business pragmatic minded people who are going to we're going to be the ones who are going to ask the question, like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for it? It's like, it's not we're opposed to government running things. It's elect us because we're better at running things. That's been the kind of attitude of conservatives. It's not, we're against socialism. It's we're against the Democrats doing socialism. Just elect us and we'll do socialism better. We'll run it more properly, more efficiently.
Well, being conservatives, you would think we'd be against socialism 100%, just not.
You would think. I mean.
Well, why do you say that?
Well, look at before Trump. I mean, and take Reagan out of the equation. What has every Republican done but grow government? Every time the Republicans have the presidency, and just look at when Trump got in office. I mean, Republicans had a chance to reform healthcare,
right, and
reform entitlements. They did the tax thing, but so what? I mean, you didn't reform entitlements, and you didn't fix healthcare. We had an opportunity. Paul Ryan didn't want to do it because he was mad Trump won and he didn't like Trump. So they threw away an opportunity. This is the issue, right? Every time the Republicans have power, they don't exercise it in the way that Democrats exercise power when they have it.
We become what I like to call limp-wristed.
Yeah.
Spineless. We don't go after the heavy, hard-hitting issues that we should go after when we do have the power. The one thing I did like about Trump is he said, let's get this done.
Yeah.
He was constantly on Paul Ryan's rear end, constantly on Mitch McConnell's rear end, on the backside. Look, we got the power. We got the majority in the House and the Senate, the White House. Let's push as much through as possible. And really, I don't think they believed in him for the first year and a half, 2 years.
No.
Honestly, until he really got serious and said, he put his foot down. He really did.
And Trump is sometimes at his best when he is criticizing other Republicans, rhinos, if you will, because we should be more harsh. We should be harsher on Republicans that don't do Republican things.
I get a lot of flack for this. And when I did run for office, I ran as a MAGA candidate.
Yeah.
I backed Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, he is one of the best Republican candidates that we've had since Reagan, right?
Yeah.
So, point being, big Trump fan, but me being a Trump fan, I should be able to criticize him for what he is doing or not doing because I'm backing him. I'm supporting him. It's not a criticism per se. It's more of
it is a criticism, but that's fine, right? It's like when he tried to do some kind of a gun control thing, and Second Amendment people were like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Never mind, JK, LOL. We're not actually doing that. I was just kidding." When you criticize him, he tends to listen, and then do the more conservative thing, not the less conservative thing.
Yeah, it's that whole constructive criticism. If I'm going to be backing this candidate and I believe in what he's wanting to do, I feel like I could criticize him constructively and say, listen, this is the path that he should be on, but I'm not going to sit back and be like liberal about it and bash him for it.
Yeah.
That's not my purpose. I'm not bashing him. Same thing with the Republican Party. I'm the treasurer for the Republican Party.
Right.
I am going to criticize it. I'm going to put my 2 cents in because I don't want to see Trump fail. I don't want to see the Republican Party fail.
Right.
Or any candidate that I'm working with or for. I'm also Representative Coleman's campaign manager.
Yeah.
Him and I have sit-down conversations or over-the-phone conversations. We throw ideas at each other.
Right.
And I think that's how it should be.
Right.
and we meet in the middle. And most of those times, they're better ideas than it's brainstorming, basically. But my point is, I believe that we should be able to criticize the person that we are backing, the party we're backing, just because I don't want to see stuff like that fail.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what do they say? Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
And I get it. A proper criticism of a Republican or the Republican Party would be criticizing a Republican for not being conservative, right? So I agree. I think we should be able to criticize Republicans, and it's better when it's coming from us, right? It's like family. Only I can criticize my brother.
Right.
But it's not the kind of criticism that the left is doing. The left is criticizing us because they hate us.
They're putting us down. So Dan Bongino says this, and I agree with him, that liberals think that we are bad people with bad ideas, but we think liberals generally are good people with bad ideas.
Yeah, and I don't know that I fully agree with that sentiment necessarily, but I mean, I think that there are a lot of the left is full of nasty people who are bad people, legitimately bad people who say bad things and call for violence and threaten people, and so and I there's going to be this whataboutism of, well, what about on the right?
Right.
No, not this is not even close.
Yeah.
There's no equivalent of this on the right, what we're seeing on the left, and the left are in power. Right? The left own the institutions. They own the universities. They own Hollywood. They own journalism. They own the bureaucracy of the government. They are, for all intents and purposes, in power, but they always pretend as though they're not, right? They always pretend that they're the underdog, which is weird. They have this underdog mindset where they think that they're constantly fighting the threat of the big, bad, rich, capitalist pig Republicans who run everything, when in reality, they run everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
So it's different when there is no equivalent on the right of what we're seeing with the left.
Let's roll into with the same liberal mindset and how they want to poo-poo on us all the time. With the nomination of, we can now say this,
yes,
Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Yep.
Can we get a round of applause real quick?
Sounds good, doesn't it?
So they attacked her for wanting to reverse Roe versus Wade.
That's funny because she never even said that. During the hearings, she said she had no intention. It's a done deal. It's done and dusted. I mean, she's not. She's going to be a Supreme Court justice.
Well,
she's not going to relitigate this case.
The talking point is Gorsuch is on the bench.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh's on the bench.
Yeah.
I should say he's also Catholic.
Yeah.
And for some reason they attacked him on that as well. Now, Amy Coney Barrett is on the bench. She is a Catholic.
Yeah.
And Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, my favorite. So there's a Catholic squad on the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm not sure if Clarence Thomas is.
I don't think.
But John Roberts, for sure, he's been a wishy-washy Republican from the beginning. Or I shouldn't say Republican. I need to back my thought up there. Conservative.
Sure.
From the beginning. But at least with Gorsuch, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, there is 4 conservative justices, and I'm leaving out Roberts on purpose. 4 conservative justices, and Roberts is a swing vote. But that's what they're saying. Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. Healthcare is going to be overturned. And what else was their talking point? Point being, can we see the country moving in a different direction if the Democrats win the White House, they keep the House, and maybe turn over the Senate, or the Senate becomes more of a 50-50 where Kamala Harris could be a tiebreaker? do you think we would see the Supreme Court step in? Like saying if it was a liberal Supreme Court, they would step in more often if conservatives controlled something.
No.
So do you think a conservative Supreme Court would step in if the liberals?
No. And here's
so yeah, what's the difference and why?
Here's the thing: conservatives, on principle, don't believe in judicial activism. So of course they're not going to do what the left would do and intervene to produce the right outcome, right? The left, once again, when conservatives are in power, they don't act the same way as when the left is in power. When the left is in power, they exercise power, right, to the maximalistic extent. So
should we, or does that set a bad precedent moving forward?
Well, what would be the right-wing equivalent of exercising power? Taking over the government so they can leave you alone? I mean,
well, yeah,
but the difference is, like you said, they take over the White House, the Senate, and they keep the House. What's not going to happen is you're not going to get a quote-unquote conservative Supreme Court that just shoots down everything that the commies want to do. They tried doing this when FDR pushed through the New Deal and pushed through all these unconstitutional things and grew the size of government to 1 million. The Supreme Court was shooting everything down that he was trying to do, and what did he do? He threatened to pack the court.
Didn't he pack the court?
No, he threatened to do it. See, that's all it took. All he had to do was threaten to do it. He didn't even have to do it. He just had to threaten to do it, and the Supreme Court fell in line. So what's going to happen if that happens? No, we are not going to see a super base Supreme Court that strikes down communism. We're going to see them fall into line because that's what they've done historically.
There's a lot hinging on this election.
Yeah.
Here in just a few days. We've talked about Trump possibly winning the nomination. So do you think that's going to be close?
Or winning
nomination,
the,
I'm sorry. Winning
the election, yeah.
Winning the election.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be a close one?
Yes, I do. I think it's going to be very close.
Because we've seen people come out in droves already. We've got half the voting percentage already accounted for in early voting and mail-in voting.
Yeah. Didn't early voting already surpass turnout in 2016?
It did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So election day, I'm thinking every voting age American is probably getting out there, both on the left and the right. The right is saying we cannot move forward with a socialist agenda that's trying to be hidden inside the Biden campaign. And all the people on the left are orange man bad. Trump's got to go.
Yeah. No
KKK, no USA.
Right. Yeah. Well, here's what I've seen. I have seen a lot of Republicans saying they're going to vote on Election Day. Republicans historically tend to do this anyway. It's an event, right? But
an event that I think should be handled on a national holiday.
Well, like I said.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It wouldn't be the end of the world for me if that happened. But this is the thing. Republicans tend to vote on Election Day, and they are going to, a lot of them are. I think we're going to see historic Republican turnout on Election Day. The Democrats have banked on mail-in voting, early voting, and it's not yielding the returns that they expected it to. So the strategies backfired on them. So what we would have to see for Democrats to pull it off would be a massive in-person Democrat turnout in a lot of swing states, which I don't think is going to happen. I think, like I said, they spooked their own base, and they're not going to show up in person on Election Day. They were supposed to all early vote in a landslide, early vote, mail-in vote. They were all supposed to do this in massive numbers. And again, going back to, remember we were talking about making it easy for people to vote? They made it as easy as possible to vote, and they still could not drum up enthusiasm for their base to turn out enough to beat Republicans in certain key jurisdictions.
So at one point, Minnesota was in play.
Yeah.
Do you think Minnesota is still in play, or?
Yeah, I think Minnesota, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are the states to watch. They're swing states, and they.
Wisconsin?
I think. Well, I don't know about Wisconsin. But if Trump does as well as he did in 2016 there,
Yeah.
then it should be fine. But I would say that those are the states to watch: Michigan, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, because of their number of electoral votes.
What about Arizona?
I think he'll win Arizona.
What do you think about is Martha McSally, the senator running for re-election? Am I correct?
Yeah.
How do you think she's going to do? Because she has a tough race.
I know, she does. I can't really say because I haven't followed it close enough.
That's fair enough.
So I don't know.
Honest.
Yeah, I don't know about Martha McSally, but I think he'll win Arizona.
That being said, I think we need to move a little bit local instead of national. Let's bring it back to the local level.
Yeah.
And there's a lot on our ballots here in Missouri and in Jackson County. The first one is a constitutional amendment. And all these constitutional amendments scare me when you're amending the Missouri Constitution, the United States Constitution, because it's hard to overturn a bad constitutional amendment. And we're going to talk about Amendment 3 again here in a second, and that passed. Amendment 1 passed back 2 years ago in 2018.
Yeah.
That was a bad amendment. But let's focus on Amendment 1 in 2020, which is term limits on state officials, statewide elected officials to be more specific.
Yeah.
So it reads almost saying a yes vote will impose a term limit, a 4-year term limit on statewide elected officials, and a no vote will leave them unchanged. So currently, what we have is our statewide elected officials. The only one that is term limited is our governor.
Well,
right?
the treasurer. The treasurer is term limited.
Okay, and the treasurer is term limited.
And that's it.
So that gives them 2 4-year terms.
Yep. Just like the president.
Correct.
Yep.
And you and I were having this discussion the other day, actually, about these term limits and how we both felt about it. I know we're seeing on the opposite sides of the spectrum on this.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great time for the people listening to make up their own decisions from both of our perspectives.
Yeah.
So I'm
is
for the term limit. You're against the term limit.
Yeah.
And let's hear your side of the story.
Well, I think it's great that we as conservatives can disagree with each other reasonably and rationally. And we're always talking about how we disagree with the left, and there's a lot to disagree with them on. But when we have disagreements, we can do it from a place of good faith and in a respectful way. But anyway, I'm against term limits, and I know that's a hot take. It's an unpopular opinion. A lot of conservatives and libertarian types think that term limits are the answer to career politicians and limiting power, and I think that's a mistake. I think that's I do not think that term limits will help at all with reining in career politicians. In fact, I think it will have the opposite effect that people think it will have. I compare it to campaign finance laws or limits, right? What we've done in Missouri is we've limited campaign contributions, and what we saw was a massive influx of dark money in PACs. So you've just redirected the problem. You didn't attack the root of the problem, right?
I agree with you on that part.
It's the same thing with term limits. You are going to term limit. We've already term limited our state representatives and our state senators.
Yeah.
And what happened was the bureaucracy and the lobbyist class, basically the power shifted to them, because guess what? Term limited state representatives come and go, but lobbyists and bureaucrats stay the same, right? And they don't have a learning curve.
I mean, you're making very, very strong statements that I see your point in this.
Yeah.
Really, I do. I see both sides. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, that's point one, right? Point one is it doesn't attack the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is that we expect the government to do too much. We gave the government way too much power, and control over the economy. They basically take it upon themselves to plan the economy. Entire industries and sectors of the economy are either socialized or heavily regulated. I mean, there's too much power there to begin with. And term limiting congressmen or term limiting various offices, it's like the power of the presidency. Has the power of the presidency decreased or increased since term limits were introduced for the president? After Franklin Roosevelt was presidency.
Well, the power of the presidency it's increased, more executive orders.
Well, yeah, the power of the presidency has increased, and all you've done is you've changed the dynamic. You've changed.
But has a bureaucracy in Washington and lobbyists in Washington?
Yes, they've grown more powerful. What is this thing? What do we call the swamp? What do we call the deep state? What are we referring to when we say these things? It's the bureaucracy. It's the entrenched career bureaucrats who are there for 40 years, who never leave, who can't be fired, and they've just become more powerful. The lobbyists have become more powerful. Lobbyists are the ones writing laws. Congressmen don't write laws. Lobbyists do. And industry insiders write laws, and they hand them to their congressman, and the congressman says, looks good, and we'll have to read it out after we pass it. I mean, term limits, this is this weird deal where conservatives and libertarians really, really, really love term limits, and they really think this is the answer, and it really is not. That's point one.
So why is our governor term limited?
Yeah.
And not the rest of the state then? Why don't you, do you agree with the governor being term limited?
No, I don't believe, here in general, I'm so extreme on this issue, I don't believe in term limits at all. Not even for the president.
What is wrong with you?
See,
we could have another FDR situation, and then the liberals, the progressives, the true progressive liberals would take over the country. And you think FDR was bad?
They already have.
Okay, well, hold on. If you think FDR was bad and his policies that were implemented, it will be more extreme, especially in today's standards with socialism. This is not a dictatorship. And George Washington said so himself, that no man should serve longer than what he did, because he did not feel like he should have been a king,
right,
an excellency,
right.
At most, he pushed everything off to the lawmakers, because he did not feel like the power of the presidency should be strong. It's you serve your time for your country and you leave.
Right. And yeah, that's fine and all, but George Washington had that attitude also because he kind of just wanted to go back to his farm and live an easy life.
Well, then why did it take to FDR for FDR to be elected 3 times, but every other president before that followed that standard of the Washington standard?
Well, again, the progressive era, starting with Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, no. We got to back up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been going on for a while.
Let's go back. Let's be honest. We were talking about honesty inside of our party.
Yeah.
Let's be honest with the Republicans started this progressive era with Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So let's be honest with that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Yeah, totally. The point I'm making though is FDR didn't happen in a vacuum. The country had been the progressives had been pushing us in this direction for a while, and FDR was kind of it was a pivotal time because he expanded the scope and the power of the federal government beyond what it had ever been before. And actually, part of the reason why he ran and got reelected for 3 terms was we were at war. So, I think it was Lincoln who his campaign slogan was "Don't change horses midstream." So that was kind of the attitude I think that got FDR reelected so many times. I don't think, if we didn't have term limits, I don't think every president would be FDR. I think that was an anomaly. It's kind of, here's the thing, right? Your first term, you spend it mostly trying to get reelected for a second term.
Right.
So imagine if that second term wasn't safe, right? Imagine if you couldn't just do whatever you wanted second term. The entire dynamic of the game changes, doesn't it? So second term, you figure if you can make it to second term, you're safe. You don't have to work at it anymore, and you can do all the things you want to do that you couldn't do in the first term because you're not worried about re-election anymore. But if every term is I have to worry about getting reelected, that changes the game, doesn't it?
I see your point, but let's bring this back down to the state level.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think we should have Peter Candor,
Yeah.
our lieutenant governor.
He was lieutenant governor for quite a while, 3 terms.
3 terms?
I think it was 3.
3 terms.
Yeah. And he was a solid
conservative.
Yeah.
Solid conservative. But that's from our perspective.
Sure.
Seeing a conservative being reelected, I'm sure the Democrats hated that.
Yeah.
How would we feel, though, if we had constantly Democrats being reelected as lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state auditor, and
you would think
attorney general
you would
position.
Well, okay. So
and abusing that power. I think so. From my perspective, term limits would be good at the statewide elected positions. Same thing as the presidency. You serve your 2 4-year term, and you get the hell out. That's what public office is supposed to be about. You go, you serve your term, for which we've gotten off track on bigly, right?
Bigly.
So you go, you serve your term, and you go the hell home.
Yeah.
You forget about the public life. You go the hell home.
Sure.
We have gotten so far away from this that we've actually forgotten what it's meant, and it's a very important position to be in.
Right.
The people elected you. So we have it's already been said that we have 2 4-year terms.
Yeah.
And you have a statewide for the governor. The lieutenant governor would fall in place. Same thing with the other statewide elected officials.
Yeah.
It makes sense going down ballot, or going downstream, I should say. It makes more sense instead of willy-nilly, let's elect this guy for the next 3 terms, this guy for only 1 term, this guy for 2 terms.
Yeah. So you're saying for consistency's sake.
Consistency's sake.
We should be consistent.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Right. If you're going to do something, be all about it. Go all the way. Right. I understand that. I sympathize with that. But my point still stands. None of this addresses the problem. The problem is not you can serve too many terms. This is a Band-Aid solution, and it doesn't address the root cause of the problem.
And the problem is?
The problem is these people have too much power to begin with.
So you're going to give them more power?
Less power. No. Again,
less power would be term limiting.
No, it wouldn't.
More power. Them serving longer years.
While you're there, it doesn't matter if you're 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms.
In your mind.
While you're there, you can still do everything that FDR did, right? FDR did most of what he did in 2 terms. If FDR was term limited, we'd still have everything FDR did.
But in your mind, you think that they would...
Obama, look at Obama. Obama changed a lot of things. He only had 2 terms. He still screwed a lot of things up in 2 terms. The problem is the power. The problem is we don't have a proper view of the scope of the state, of the government. And it's not that you can be... Imagine this. Imagine we had such a limited government that all it could do was the military, the police, and the court system. Would it matter if one guy was president for 12 years?
No, because he would be limited in what he could do.
Exactly.
But we know that's not going to happen. That never has happened.
But, okay, sure.
George Washington, that was it.
Sure.
Okay? He set the precedent, and it was broken after that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, how do we get back to the Founding Fathers' actual vision of this country, especially at the state level here? Well, they said leave it up to the states.
Well,
a lot of the state power, government overreach and federal government overreach is a whole different podcast.
Well,
but let's just bring it back here.
Right. So like I said, it's like with the legislature. It's the same deal. What happened in the legislature?
So in the legislature, I agree with you on this. The lobbyists are in control.
And the
Jeff
bureaucrats.
City, and the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think it's an unfair statement to say they're not in 100% control.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. Okay. I'm saying what happens is you get a new guy in there. Uh-huh. He's got to relearn how to read, right? He's got to learn everything from the ground up.
Right.
The bureaucrats and the lobbyists who are in there don't have to learn everything.
They've been in there.
They've been in there.
They know it.
They know the system, and they play the system. They are experts at playing the system.
Yes.
Whereas freshman, state rep has to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, good luck to you. And then when they're on their way out, they're termed out, what happens is the last month of your term, guess what happens? Bureaucrats stop answering your phone calls. They don't care about you anymore. You have no power now. They will literally do whatever they want. I heard a story from a state rep who had heard of a case of a real, improper thing going on in the bureaucracy, and he tried to call someone about it. They wouldn't even take his phone call. He is an elected official. The people put him there, and it is his job to oversee this bureaucracy. The bureaucracy becomes totally unaccountable when you term limit these people.
So I agree with you at the state rep position and side.
Why is it different for the governor or any other executive? Why is it different?
They're actually the head of the state, correct?
So they're the executive, right?
They are the executive of the
sure.
state.
So why is it different?
The less time they're in power, because this is not a dictatorship. Okay, period.
Okay, but
that is my answer.
But you're talking about okay. They're the executive that shares.
So you believe in dictatorships?
No.
That's what you're saying, Dakota. You believe in dictatorships?
Whoa, no. So
I'm I'm messing with you.
Okay. We live in a 3 co-equal branches: legislative, executive, judicial. So balance of powers, right? Checks and balances, all that other stuff. So we're not talking dictatorships in any scenario because they'll be checked by the legislature and the courts. So it's not, I'm saying, my point is, why is it different with the governor? Why is it different with the treasurer? It's not.
So if they're
because
guess
checked, what happens?
If they're going to be checked if the governor is going to be checked with 2 other branches of government.
Okay.
Then what does it matter if they're a Democrat? What does it matter if they're a Republican?
What do you mean?
Their party choices.
Sure.
If they run as a Democrat, if they run as a Republican. If they're going to be checked with 2 different branches of government, then.
No, I'm saying it's not. There's not more.
You believe in dictatorships. That's what you're saying.
Oh my gosh. No. I'm saying the problem persists. Bureaucrats, lobbyists will still run the show. Doesn't matter if you're the governor or if you're state rep. The problem persists in both of these branches. It's not different because he's the governor. The problem is the same. So what happens is you got a governor that's got to relearn everything because he's brand new, he's termed out, and the bureaucrats have been there forever.
But isn't that what his advisors are there for?
Sure.
He has advisors for that very same scenario.
Okay.
He might not know what he's doing or might not be in that position.
But
I'm sure most of our governors have been.
Let me scale it up for you.
State senators, so they know the game. They know what they need to do to pass legislation. They've worked with previous governors.
What are you referring to then? You're referring to the deep state, right? The swamp. The people who've been there forever that never get fired.
But we're electing these people still.
Right. We're electing these people
based on experience
to be figureheads.
Right. So
to be figureheads that don't actually run things. The people that actually run things.
Would it be smarter though for us to elect someone that has the experience in the legislature as a state representative or a state senator, moving up to become governor? Or would we rather have Joe Blow off the street here that doesn't have any experience being a state senator, state representative?
That's a completely separate question.
No, it's not, because
it's unrelated.
What you're equating though is the experience they have and taking money from lobbyists. Because you said it, as a freshman representative, the lobbyists and the bureaucrats have more power over them,
right?
Passing legislation.
Yeah.
As they get more experienced, you said you see that fall off more. So if it falls off with more experience, when they become governor, finally, how much lobbyist and bureaucracy is around that then?
So I get what you're saying there, right? That's a good point. They you climb the ladder, so to speak, and
right.
So you know how the game is played, so you can play the game just as well as everyone else. I get that. But what I'm saying is, look at the federal government. The president's term limited. The president, if you think the president really, really has a tight grip on the executive branch, consider this. President Trump wrote an executive order, signed an executive order, saying federal agencies will no longer be able to do critical race theory trainings, right?
Okay.
Guess what happened? One of the bureaucrats at I think it was where was it? The CDC? Some agency said, basically, we're going to do it anyway. Whatever. I know you signed it.
Well,
I know
they usually take him to court.
No.
Take it to court.
It's an executive order. They basically said...
Well, they still take executive orders to court.
They said, I know you're the president of the United States, you're the head of the executive branch, you're the head of government, but also we're not going to listen to you and we're going to do what we want.
How do you feel about executive orders? On any level?
Well...
Gubernatorial or the presidency?
I think executive orders should only apply... They're a function of...
I don't like them.
You like them?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Well, I mean...
That's what the legislature's there for.
I don't think that they should be writing laws, by executive order. When it comes to Congress writes a law and gives the president this scope of powers to do this thing, then if the president writes an executive order that's within the scope of that legislation, fine. I'm with you on the president should not be writing law that way. They shouldn't be edicts, but the point I'm making is the President of the United States, who is the head of the bureaucracy of the federal government, gave them an order and they told him no. And you know why? Because they actually run things, not the president.
Okay, so let's bring it back to track, on track. And I know people are yelling at me, Trump didn't have any experience in government either. I realize that, and that's why I elected him. Okay, so Amendment 1. We kind of talked about the 4-year term, 2 4-year terms statewide elected officials. I want you guys to make up your mind from this decision, or from this talk we've had for the past 25 minutes, and we are going over on this podcast. This is going to be a longer podcast than usual because there's so much to talk about and to pack into. We're just days outside of this election. So the next talking point is Amendment 3.
Yeah.
So this is a contentious thing that everybody is talking about, the left and the right in this state. Amendment 3 was Amendment 1 back in 2018.
Yeah.
And it was called Clean Missouri.
Yeah.
You've heard Representative Coleman on this podcast numerous times. We've spent half an hour or more each podcast speaking about Amendment 3.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to dive into it too much. If you guys want, go back to the archives and listen. But what I do want to say is that the Democrats are saying that if Amendment 3 passes, the districts are going to be gerrymandered, which is untrue.
Which is rich coming from them.
What it does is reverse Amendment 1 to stop the gerrymandering.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. So riddle me this: how is it that you go from a system that the criteria for drawing districts is compact, contiguous districts of equal population. You go from that to basing your criteria on how many Democrats and Republicans are in each district. How do you go from that system to that system and say the previous system was gerrymandering? The literal definition of gerrymandering is basing the district's shape on partisan composition.
Right.
Clean Missouri wanted to base our redistricting on partisan composition. They wanted to literally gerrymander. So it's super rich coming from the left when they say that passing Amendment 3 will lead to gerrymandering. That's super ironic coming from them, because their system that they wanted to put in place under Clean Missouri is based on actual definitional gerrymandering.
Correct. So I want everybody to go to Citizens for Jeff Coleman, search that on Facebook, and you will see probably about 5 posts in a row about Amendment 3. And you will see one of them is on the map on the left is our current state house districts. The map on the right you will see is what has been proposed from our current population from our last census. So we all know every 10 years, every year, our cities grow, the districts will grow, and that's why the lines get moved, right?
Yeah.
Due to population size.
Yeah.
And what they're wanting to do is based on Democrat, Republican.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the point I'm saying is the map on the right is the proposed drawing of what the districts would look like with the current population, not the current census, but the current population.
Yeah.
And you could tell there's definite gerrymandering. So check out Citizens for Jeff Coleman on Facebook, and there's going to be a lot of information on there for you. So let's move closer to Jackson County. And question 1, let me sum it up for you, basically says that a yes vote would impose a $1 additional fee for the county 911 service.
Yeah, so this is just an extra tax. That's all it is. And people I've talked to who work in government say that this is just another scheme to get more money. So the language on the ballot says that that the money raised from this will be put in a separate fund just for 911, right? And if you've ever worked local government, you know that that's just another honeypot for them to raid whenever
To dip into.
Yeah. So no, listen, I don't know about you, but when I call 911, if I ever call 911, I know that someone's going to answer. We already have it. We already have 911 service.
What are they going to do with the extra $1?
Well, they say, so, and again, they call it a fee on the ballot language, but it's a tax. They want to tax
It's a tax.
They want to tax you.
But what are they going to do with it, though? What's the purpose of them wanting the extra $1?
Well, to fund 911 service.
But it's already funded.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
That's it.
So does this mean that by not supporting it, we do not support our law enforcement?
Well, if you were a leftist who had a small brain, you would think that. But we're not leftists. We don't have small brains. No, this, again...
This comes from a power grab of the county.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say the county legislature so much, because we have a great chairperson on the county legislature. Our county executive is trash, as we all know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so people don't even realize there's a whole, the county government, there's a county executive, and then there's a legislature. So, and the legislature has a chairman. So, yeah, our county legislature chairman is good. Our county executive is not so good. But yeah, this is a no-brainer. We don't need to tax everybody $1 a month just for having cell phone service. That's what this is. It says impose a $1 a month fee on communication services, which is basically your cell phone service, right? Your phone service. So it's just an extra tax. It's yet another tax for supposedly a good sounding thing that will be corrupted and used for.
And there's already a fee
things.
for this anyway.
Yeah.
So that being said, remember last year when the county, Jackson County, raised our property tax significantly, upwards to 4,000% in some cases. 4,000%. And that would be a podcast for next time, because Representative Coleman actually put in a bill last year to stop this ridiculous,
this absurd, arbitrary assessment of property tax.
Correct.
Yeah.
And COVID happened, and they had to focus more on COVID relief stuff
Right.
and everything else in the legislature. But anyway, so I think both you and I agree on this issue that it's just another tax, unnecessary tax that we don't need.
Yeah.
I know at the time when we were talking to the rest of the committee, they decided they wanted to table this question and leave it up to the voters, basically.
Yeah.
But this is our assessment of it.
Yeah.
So, next. Oh, go ahead. Were you gonna?
No, the next one, the coup de grace.
Number 2. Question number 2 in Jackson County. It is to remove the Andrew Jackson statues from the Independence Courthouse and the Kansas City Courthouse.
Yep.
Or the Jackson County Courthouse, downtown Kansas City.
Yeah.
So we have seen all over the country the BLM movement grow since George Floyd. We have seen activists come out and knock down statues, especially of Confederate statues, presidential statues, and they've even gone after Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Yeah.
That abolished slavery. But that's not good enough because he was a white man.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So Andrew Jackson, that's how Jackson County got their name, from Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
There's a statue in front of both of these courthouses, and at the time when the civil unrest was happening, downtown Kansas City, it was spray painted, talks of removing the statue, being pulled down, vandalized, and Frank White gave in and said, just remove the statues. Well, thank goodness for our chairperson on the county legislature, Teresa Galvin.
Yep.
She put her foot down. She put it down hard.
Yep.
And she said, the people paid for this statue. Leave it up to the people to decide.
And that's why it's on the ballot.
And this is why it's on the ballot.
Yep. So you get to decide, people.
So, our position on the county is vote no so we can keep these statues in place.
Right.
Regardless, it is part of history.
Yeah.
Okay? That is the reason our county has a name.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So.
Well, so this is the issue, right? Go back to Saul Alinsky. The issue is never the issue. They say the issue is racism.
No one's talking about it anymore, though.
No.
That's the thing. It's a flutter. It's something big, flash in the pan, a right now.
Right. Well, here's
if you let the leftists cry about it for 2-3 days, the media will stop covering it. They'll go away because they get bored because they're not getting the attention.
Right.
I guarantee everybody has forgotten about this, and they're going to see it on the ballot, and they're going to go, "What? Remove statues? No."
Right. And it's not about racism. We can talk about Andrew Jackson and the things that he did all we want. The point is, these leftists don't want to tear down these statues because they care about racism. And I think Andrew Jackson was also a Democrat, which is funny. But it doesn't matter. It's not about the racism. It's not about the legacy or the history of Andrew Jackson. It's about iconoclasm, and an iconoclasm is when you destroy culture and cultural artifacts of a group you don't like. You erase their history, and that's what they're trying to do.
What was that word one more time?
Iconoclasm.
Okay.
And an iconoclasm. The left right now is engaged in iconoclasm against America. They want to erase our history. They want to tear down our culture, and that's the reason they're doing this. They are demoralizing us. They are tearing us down, and they're engaged in outright iconoclasm. That's why they went after Abraham Lincoln. It's not about racism. It's not about oppression. It's about iconoclasm. It's about tearing down and destroying things, and tearing down and destroying America, the idea, and the culture of America, because they want to replace it with something else. So that's what you do when you engage in iconoclasm. You tear down a people's culture and you replace it with something else. So this, again, the issue is never the issue. They want to tear down our statues, not because they really want to get rid of the history, or not because they want to get rid of the bad legacy of the racist whatever. It's because they want to demoralize us and take away our history.
Wow. Well, I'm thinking we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
This has been a very, very informative podcast. Thank you, Dakota Worrell,
Yeah.
for sitting with me and talking.
Very welcome.
Once again, guys, remember, Tuesday, November 3rd.
Yeah.
Get out and vote. Voting lines are going to be long. You got to wait them out. I believe Monday is the last day you can early vote or absentee vote.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So there we have it.
Nice. Thank you for having me on.
One last reminder that we are going to be having a watch party in South Kansas City at the Blue Moose off of Holmes Road in Kansas City. And we're going to have one more watch party at Llewellyn's Pub, downtown Lee's Summit, with congressional candidate Ryan Dirks. Both parties start 6, 7 o'clock. I want to invite everybody that's hearing this out to the election night watch parties. Wear your MAGA hats, your Trump shirts, bring your Trump flag. We're going to rah-rah as Republicans come together and have a good old time. My name's Kress Cambers for Dakota Worrell. Thank you once again for coming in.
You're welcome.
And doing this podcast. We will see you guys next time. This podcast has been brought to you by the Jackson County Republican Party. And promotional considerations given by Heartland Funding Incorporated, helping promote traditional values and candidates. Contribute at jacamo.gop. That's JACAMO.gop. And fundingtheheartland.com.